Alright, what's poppin', people? We're back. And I want to cover, not necessarily Grimmsnarl as a whole in this video, but I want to cover Choice Banded Grimmsnarl because I feel like this is really the only set that's worth talking about. Yeah, I guess we could do a brief aside at the very beginning. Grimmsnarl's got a couple of sets that you in theory can use that aren't Choice Band. I just feel they haven't really seen a lot of use. And as a result, I don't want to go too in depth with them. But if you're talking about other sets, right? We've seen Grimmsnarl do something along the lines of this, if I can remember how to spell. We've seen like substitute bulk up, and then you use Spirit Break to punish Pokemon like, say, Vaporeon and Mantine, that are otherwise going to be too passive and can't break your subs reliably. Now you could even do Throat Chop if you want to try to mess up a Sylveon that's running Hyper Voice. And then you've got some like other niche sets as well that are still kind of wallbreaker oriented, so we've seen some actually use protective pads, still using Prankster of course, because kind of the point of the set is to make use of Taunt. What you're trying to do is you're trying to be faster than the Talonflames of the world, deny them their recovery. And then of course protective pads is just kind of useful here, because you also get to avoid Rocky Helmet damage, you get to avoid, Talonflame's Flame Body, you get to avoid Vileplume's Effect Spore. There's just a lot that this item actually offers a Pokemon. But I want to focus on Choice Band for this video because I think CB Grimm is by far the best set. But I also think that there are a lot of notable issues with it that have caused us to not really take it as seriously as maybe we otherwise would as a threat. Now this isn't to say that this is like some trash Pokemon or even like an average Pokemon. I'd say Grimmsnarl is very good still. It's like A- on the VR right now. But I think there are some notable issues with it that still hold it back, especially if you start trying to compare it to some of the other Dark-type wall breakers over the past couple of generations in NU that we've seen. But first, let's talk about the good, right? So, one of the things I think that Grimmsnarl immediately needs pointed out is how good its coverage is. So I think this is just the 4 that I default to, but Grimmsnarl's got a lot of options here. And by a lot, maybe not as many as you'd like it to be. But you got like Power Whip as an option. I've even seen people do it like this move setup. I've seen people do this move setup and then run on Prankster so that you can get the fast Trick off. And of course, Trick also being really good because if you think about what is likely to switch into a Grimmsnarl, it's going to be like a bulky poison type, maybe a Talonflame, just Pokemon that can pivot around its stab attacks. Even like a Mudsdale maybe. Mudsdale just being really bulky, it can take more than 2 hits. And then you'd steal its lefties. Well, giving it a Choice Band isn't the most exciting thing to do, but it's still a possible way to cripple it, I guess. What other coverage moves do we have that are actually worth talking about? I don't think we really have any others, right? Yeah, I mean, you could probably do like Thunder Punch if you really wanted to snipe out Talonflame, I guess, but I don't think that's too useful. And I think even if you just want to point out a set that got usage lately, in NUPL, I believe this was brought in a game last week. Gum versus Confide, I believe Gum was using Trick with Sucker Punch, which I feel is probably the least common combination. From what I've seen so far, I think usually the top 3 moves are almost on every set. These 2 are just the non-negotiable ones. You could do Throat Chop over Lariat if you want, again, to capitalize on the Sylveon matchup. But I would also say, especially on Choice Band Grimmsnarl, just hit the Sylveon with your other attack, But I'd say this probably, hold on, let me make the Sucker Punch again. I'd say this is probably your most standard set, with Power Whip being an option here, Trick also being an option with Prankster. Oh, I still kept it Prankster, nice. And then even this right here being an option if you want Sucker Punch and Trick, kind of to give you an edge in both matchups against offensive stuff and more defensive stuff. I think Sucker Punch Grimmsnarl is just really nice because 120 base attack, really good. It's going to let you snipe out a lot of the common offensive Pokemon in the tier, like, for example, Salazzle, Heliolisk maybe if you run into one of those, etc. But why is this Pokemon maybe not as good as we thought it was going to be at first? Because thinking back to a lot of the dialogue around the time Grimmsnarl dropped, there were a couple people really outspoken about how they thought this was one of the most ban-worthy Pokemon ever. And when you look at 120 attack and really, really good coverage, you know, Dark and Fairy are two of the better offensive typings in the game. And to have stab on both of those, that's really, really, really good. So maybe why is Grimmsnarl fallen short? Well, for starters, I think the easiest one is this. Alright, so I'm going to try to give my Grimmsnarl knockoff, and it's saying that's illegal. What? Huh? No knockoff? Yeah, so Grimmsnarl doesn't get knockoff. And I think that's probably the biggest knock against it. Wow, okay, unintentional. I think that's the biggest negative for Grimmsnarl, though, in terms of just its offensive move pool, right? Not having the ultimate mid-ground move of knockoff, stab knockoff, mind you, is always kind of unfortunate. Because it means unless you, for example, run, you know, the more niche set of protective pads with Taunt, or if you trick away a Rocky Helmet. Against Pokemon like Weezing, sometimes Vileplume, even, I was gonna say even Talonflame, I mean, you could like knock the boots off and it'd just make that Pokemon not as consistent switching. Regardless, you're always gonna have to contend with Rocky Helmet. You're always gonna have to contend with your switch-ins having leftovers as well. Like, those are just things that you have to deal with. And knockoff being the most spammable move in the game is kind of huge when you look at all the other dark types we've had. You know, you're talking like Incineroar, Guzzlord, Absol, Sneasel. All these Pokemon have the freest move in the game to use. Every turn, you can guarantee almost significant progress, because removing an item is always a benefit. In Grimmsnarl, it's not the case. You end up having to make some 50-50s against a lot of defensive cores in the game. I think teams do drop a Dark Resist frequently enough now to where you can still generally get mileage out of just using Darkest Lariat. But of course, Player Up has plenty of switch-ins into tier between Talonflame, Weezing, Vileplume. We got like Stack Attack as well. And then even if you want to look at Darkest Lariat switch-ins, I mean, that is where it starts to become less of an issue. But, you know, Diance's not nearly as common as it once was. But Sylveon is still super common, and there are enough fighting types around too, to where it's like, yeah, you're doing a lot of damage with your Lariat, but you're giving Pokemon like Machamp still a chance to come in and potentially break. Sirfetch'd could come in and break. And you still do have to contend with some blanket physical walls like the Mudsdale, who doesn't really take a lot of damage. Okay, you take like damn near half, but you're not 2-hit KO-ing the horse. It's just not happening. So that could be a little troubling. And then of course, issues with ever locking into CB Sucker Punch could be kind of annoying. That's just kind of there though. I don't think that's a huge issue. It's more one of those like, okay, this Pokemon requires a little bit more careful play while using. So, take that into account. But what's probably the biggest knock against Grimmsnarl in my eyes is the dreaded combination of no bulk and no speed. That's really bad. And it's really bad because it means not only is a Dark and a Fairy type, two really good defensive typings in you, you offer very little defensive utility. Because you're so frail, but because you're also so slow, you're under that mold of wallbreaker like Exploud, where yeah, you're faster than the defensive Pokemon, but you're very prone to losing games because you play at 5v6 due to no momentum. So I've played a couple of games before with Grimmsnarl where I felt like maybe I had 3 turns the whole game to use an attack. And it was because my opponent was able to manage their momentum better than me. You know, it didn't matter that I had this nuclear wall breaker in the back that could potentially 2-hit KO any switch in, depending on if I got the read right. Sometimes it could just be really hard to actually get those chances because Grimmsnarl's bulk is so bad. You know, 95 HP is good, but 65 defense is trolling, 75 special defense is trolling. And they get to 60 speed, especially since, you know, to get those really good 2-hit KO chances with Rocks up versus Pokemon, you kind of need Adamant. So, I mean, yeah, you could go Jolly, but what exactly are we getting speed-wise? I think we're faster than Modest Exploud now, maybe? We're faster than Adamant Sirfetch'd, I guess? Um, you know, there's not really a whole lot that we get from doing this. All at the cost of a decent amount of firepower, too. So there's not really a whole lot of room for getting extra speed. It really just ends up being our Alliance and Sucker Punch. And as we mentioned, I mean, if someone goes out to their Grimmsnarl versus my faster offensive Pokemon, I kind of got an idea of what to expect, you know? So, I think that combination is particularly damning. Just having your switch-in opportunities limited, and frankly just your opportunities as a whole do anything really limited, is never a very good thing, right? You're always trying with these super powerful wall breakers to position them in a way to where they get as good of a chance to just come in and basically, you know, say to your opponent, pick. You know, pick what is fainting. It's why I think when you're seeing people use a Sirfetch'd or a Choice Specs Vanillix, I think the most successful archetype that I've seen both of those used on was just super heavy Volturn spam. I think we have a sample team of it, where it's like, either one of those, Rotom Mow, Xatu, Silvally Steel Ninjask, and then Diancie, because it was just the best last one for defensive reasons. But you're talking about 4 pivots, plus one of the most annoying breakers in the tier. Yeah, that's a pretty good recipe for success. And of course, both of those breakers, you know, when you compare them to Grimmsnarl even, you know, Sirfetch'd has a little bit more reliable of priority. First impression will always go off, at least. Bug's kind of bad as an offensive typing, but still picks off a lot of the Pokemon that you would be using Sirfetch'd on that sort of team to pick off. And then of course Vanillix is just naturally faster. I think you're at 258 speed, I think. If you go modest, you're around that speed. So that's giving you a much nicer natural speed advantage versus many Pokemon. You know, you're also faster. Oh, Jolly Grim's also faster than Adamant, Tyrantrum, and Decidueye, I think. Wait, no, not Tyrantrum, just Decidueye. So that's something. Or did I say Jolly Grim there? Anyhow, y'all know what I'm talking about. But Vanillix has a natural speed advantage against even some of the stuff like Jolly, Sirfetch'd, and Timid Exploud, which is kind of cool. So it's just kind of another point in its favor, alongside outspeeding literally everything that Grimmsnarl could hope to outspeed. So you're just talking about, again, comparable Pokemon. They lack a lot of defensive utility, but that extra speed still gives them a little bit more of an advantage. Now, could you fit Grimmsnarl onto a similar team as them? I think you probably could. I mean, at the end of the day, right? You're just trying to keep momentum up with a build and position a really strong breaker with really good coverage to KO's Pokemon. I mean, I don't think there's anything really about Grimmsnarl that says no, it doesn't work on that kind of build. I do have a sample team with Grimm where, I remember the Pokemon, it's like Quagsire, Scarf Rotom Mow, Stealth Rock, Stakataka, Xatu, and then there's a last Pokemon on this team that I could not tell you right now. Wait, what? Who's the last Pokemon on that team? Wait a minute. Is it Talonflame? Maybe. Maybe it's Sylveon. No, it probably isn't Sylveon, right? Who's the last Pokemon on that team? Anyhow, like I said, it's a sample team, man. Just go check for it for yourself. Oh, why can't I remember? No! Wait a minute. Hold up. Do I have it in my builder? I do. Oh, it's Dragalge last. Cool. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Because the goal of the team is basically just Dragalge flip turn into Grimmsnarl. You know, think about the steel types that Dragalge brings in. A lot of them Grimmsnarl can actually 2-hit KO with Lariat. So you get enough chip on with Dragalge, then eventually you get to that point where Grimmsnarl's just picking them off. Xatu able to lure in Escavaliers with Heat Wave, because I do run Heat Wave on the Xatu. I don't know why I didn't just stay on the other team, but it is what it is. I'll just fill in like some stuff so y'all can get the general gist of it anyway. I don't think it's not very important anyway, of course, because I think what most of these Pokemon do is very self-explanatory, but for visualizing sakes, you know, again, you've got Like I said, Dragalge doing what it does. Xatu could potentially Heat Wave Escavalier, get that lower so that Grimmsnarl has it in Darkest Lariat range. Even Rotom-Mow, I mean, it's a little harder for Mow to put some of its shared checks in range. And when we talk about shared checks, really, it's like Vileplume. But it can at least Volt Switch into Grimmsnarl on some of the Pokemon like Decidueye and Dhelmise, which is kind of cool. And hey, you can even Volt on Vileplume and bring in Dragalge and give that a free chance to break. So I don't think it's actually that bad of a time. But yeah, guys, I think that's about it for Grimmsnarl. I know, again, we put a specific focus on Choice Band here, but I think it makes the most sense when you're talking about this mod in specific to really hone in on this set, because it's not as versatile as, say, a Pokemon like Kaparaja or Stakataka, where it's got, I feel, multiple sets that at least see a lot of use. And I hope you all enjoyed this video. Of course, if you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Don't know why you wouldn't have it already. Please. Anyhow. It's gonna be it from me. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.